to another crash course in mathematics. So this one is going to be a quick recap on how to round a number. So we're going to look at rounding to the nearest 10, to the nearest 100 and to the nearest 1000. Once you know how to do that, then you'll be able to round up to the nearest, well, whatever number, million or anything. Right, let's have a look at some rounding then. So if we've got a number, 132. The question says round it to the nearest 10. So we underline the digit that is in the tens column. Remember, if you need to have a look back at the place value lesson that I did, then do that before doing this lesson. So we have a look at this digit, and we need to have a look at its neighbour. We've got a 2. Now, if your number is 5 or above, then you round upwards. If the number is 4 or below, then you round downwards. So we've got 2. Is 2 5 or above? No. So we need to round this down. So we round that down to 0. So we've got 130, and that is rounded to the nearest 10. However, if we had 137, and your question was to round it to the nearest 10, we have a look, we underline the digit in the tens column, which is 3, look at our neighbour, we've got a 7. Now is 7 5 or above? Yes, it is, so we need to round it up. So we round that 7 up to a 10. So now we've got 1 and 3, so we need to add those together. So now we've got 140, and there is your answer. Rounded up to the nearest 10. Let's have a look at another one. We've got 234. Okay, so we're going to round this up to the nearest 10. Underline the digit in the tens column, we've got 3 again. Look next door, we've got a 4. Is 4 above 5 or less? It's less than 5. So we round that down to a 0. You're always either rounding up to 10 or rounding down to 0. So there's your answer for that one. If we had 255, have a look, we're rounding this up to the nearest 10. We've got a 5 in our tens column. We look next door, we've got a 5. Now the rule was if it's 5 or above, so it counts if it's 5 because that's sort of in the middle. So we need to round it upwards. So we're rounding this 5 up to 10. So we're putting a 0 there. We've now got an extra 1. We need to add those together. So we've now got a 60. And there you go. You've just rounded up to 260. Okay, so we're now going to round to the nearest 100. So remember, when we round to the nearest 10, we underlined the digit in the tens column. Because we're rounding to the nearest 100, we need to underline the 1 in the hundreds column. And we only look at the 1 directly next door. You ignore this guy. So if we go over, we've got a 7 in the tens column. So is 7 5 or above? Yes, it is. So we need to round it all upwards. So we round this up to 100. We need to round this up because we're adding on 1. Now, we've left this one for the minute, but if we're rounding it to the nearest 100, we don't need this one. So you turn that to a 0 as well. So that rounded to the nearest 100 is 400. Let's have a look at another one, because I know those ones are quite tricky. So we've got 331. We're going to round that to the nearest 100. So we underline the digit in the hundreds column. We've got a 3. We look next door, we've also got a 3. Now is 3 5 or above? Yes, no it isn't. So we need to round that down. So we're rounding it down to 0. What did I say to do with this one? That's it. Get rid of it, ignore it. So we're rounding down to 300. So that is your answer for that one, rounding to the nearest 100. Okay, next one. We've got a number 2,453. We're going to round this to the nearest 100. So we go over to the hundreds column, underline that one, we've got a 4 in the hundreds column. Look how I'm completely ignoring this one. This is in the thousands column, you don't need to look at it yet. So we've got a 5 in the neighbouring column, in the tens column. So is that 5 or above? Yes it is. So we need to round that up to a 10. So we put a 0 there, 1 there. So this one, we need to add those together, don't we? So that goes up to a 5. What did I say to do about the one in the ones column? That's it, get rid of it. Now, anything right of the number that you round in, you turn to a 0. Anything left to the number you're rounding, you leave. So you're going to leave this 2 here, don't get rid of that one. So your answer would be 2,500. Okay, let's try doing this one. We've got 3,219. We're going to round this to the nearest 10 first. So, underline the one in the tens column, look in the neighbour. We've got a 9. Is it 5 or above? Yes it is, so we need to round upwards. So we turn that to a 10, putting a 1 down there, add those two together, and you've got 2. So your answer would be 3,020. If we had that same number rounded to the nearest 100, look in the hundreds column, underline it, look to the neighbour, we've got a 1. Is 1 above 5? Yes, no it isn't. So we need to round down to 0. This one stays exactly the same. What did I say to do about this one? That's it, get rid of it, stick it to a 0. So your answer would be 3,200. If we now had that same number, and the question was to round it to the nearest 1,000, we look in the thousands column, look next door, we've got a 2, is it 5 or more? No it isn't, so we need to round down, so we turn that to a 0. And remember, anything left of the number, you leave, anything right of the number, you stick zeros. So your answer would be 3,000. Let's have a look at another one of those. So you've got this number, 4,999. We're going to round this to the nearest 10. So we go into the tens column, look in the neighbour, it's 9, is that 5 or above? Yes it is, so we need to round it up to a 10. So turn that onto a 0. Now we've got a 1 there. Now when we add those 9 and 1 together, we're going to get another 10, aren't we? So we're going to need to carry another 10 to there. And now we've got another 10 here. So we're rounding that up again, sticking a 1 there. Now we need to add these together. So there we go. That's 5,000, and that is to the nearest 10. Because you had to carry those ones all the way across. This is the most difficult that you'll come across. So you've got a number 2,482. I want you to round that to the nearest 10, to the nearest 100, and to the nearest 1,000 for me. And then we'll go through the answer in the next one. Okay, so to the nearest 10, we have a look in the tens column, we've got an 8, look next door, we've got a 2, so is that 5 or more? No it isn't, so we need to round down, so your answer for that one would be 2,480. Rounding this one to the nearest 100, look in the hundreds column, look next door. Is it 5 or more? Yes it is, because it's 8, so we need to round that up, so that would be rounded up to 2,500. Now we're rounding it to the nearest 1,000, so have a look in the thousands column, look next door, is it 5 or more? No it isn't, so we need to round that down to 2,000. So we've got 2,000.